AFPFile MUNIR ZAMAN. More than 600,000 Rohingya have fled to neighbouring Bangladesh in 2.5 months, sparking a dire humanitarian crisis. Myanmar leader Aung San Suu Kyi faced rising global pressure Tuesday to solve the crisis for her nation's displaced Rohingya Muslim minority, meeting the UN chief and America's top diplomat in the Philippines. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres told the Nobel laureate that hundreds of thousands of displaced Muslims who had fled to Bangladesh should be allowed to return to their homes in Myanmar. The Secretary General highlighted that strengthened efforts to ensure humanitarian access, safe, dignified, voluntary and sustained returns, as well as true reconciliation between communities would be essential, a UN statement said, summarizing comments to Suu Kyi. Guterres' comments came hours before Suu Kyi sat down with U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson on the sidelines of the East Asia Summit in Manila. Washington has been cautious in its statements on the situation in Rakhine, and has avoided outright criticism of Suu Kyi. Supporters say she must navigate a path between outrage abroad and popular feeling in a majority Buddhist country where most people believe the Rohingya are interlopers. At a photo opportunity at the top of her meeting with Tillerson, Suu Kyi ignored a journalist who asked if the Rohingya were citizens of Myanmar. At a later appearance after the meeting, Tillerson, who is headed to Myanmar on Wednesday, was asked by reporters if he had a message for Burmese leaders. He apparently ignored the question, replying only "thank you," according to a pool report of the encounter. Ethnic cleansing. More than 600,000 Rohingya have flooded into Bangladesh since late August, and now live in the squalor of the world's biggest refugee camp. The crisis erupted after Rohingya rebels attacked police posts in Myanmar's Rakhine state, triggering a military crackdown that saw hundreds of villages reduced to ashes and sparked a massive exodus. The UN says the Myanmar military is engaged in a coordinated and systematic attempt to purge the region of Rohingya in what amounts to a textbook example of ethnic cleansing. The desperate refugees who escape across the riverine border bring with them stories of rape, murder and the torching of villages by soldiers and Buddhist mobs. The Burmese government insists military action in Rakhine is a proportionate response to violence by militants. Following its first official investigation into the crisis, the army published a report this week in which it cleared itself of any abuses. However, it heavily restricts access to the region by independent journalists and aid groups, and verification of events on the ground is virtually impossible. Suu Kyi, a former democracy activist, has been lambasted by rights groups for failing to speak up for the Rohingya or condemn festering anti-Muslim sentiment in the country. Musician and campaigner Bob Geldof on Monday slammed Suu Kyi as a murderer and a handmaiden to genocide, becoming the latest in a growing line of global figures to disavow the one-time darling of the human rights community. Supporters say she does not have the power to stop the powerful military, which ruled the country for decades until her party came to power following 2015 elections. In a summit on Monday night with leaders of the 10-member Association of Southeast Asian Nations, of which Myanmar is a member, Guterres also voiced concern about the Rohingya. He said the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Rohingya was a worrying escalation in a protracted tragedy, according to the UN statement. He described the situation as a potential source of instability in the region, as well as radicalization.